If you're a frequent internet dweller or you're a Dragon Ball fan, you've probably heard this theme before. This is the theme of one of the most popular Dragon Ball villains of all time, Perfect Cell. Except it actually isn't. You see, this is actually a remix that was uploaded a long time ago. Who actually made this remix? Well, right now nobody knows, but I found some leads that are pretty promising. This is the story and the mystery of the Perfect Cell remix. You might have seen a tweet recently where someone pointed this out, and everybody in the replies was going, "But I thought I heard this in the show when I was a kid. I remember this. This is the Cell theme, right?" No, it's not. To start things off, I'm gonna give some background here. Dragon Ball is probably one of the most popular anime franchises of all time across the world. Millions of fans, huge cultural impact. A lot of people love it. You see it every day, all the time. Back in the very early 2000s and late 90s, the Dragon Ball Z Funimation dub was airing here in America, and with this came a brand new soundtrack, composed by a team led by a guy named Bruce Faulconer. This soundtrack was pretty different than what people came to expect. It was kind of 90s, 2000s rock kind of themed, with some kind of techno themes in there. Very interesting. A lot of people did enjoy it. There's some controversy because apparently he kind of stole some credit from the rest of his team, but that's a whole other thing. We don't need to get into that right now. One of the themes composed by the team was for the fan favorite villain Cell. A bioengineered super being made from the DNA of all the strongest fighters in the Dragon Ball universe. This is his actual theme the first time it plays. Now, this episode first aired here in America on November 1st of 2000, which makes the timeline I'm going to set out here for this remix honestly pretty impressive. Now, here's a little bit of the actual remix if you hadn't heard it in the background already. Now, the actual remix itself is like pretty damn good. There's a lot more to it than the actual Cell theme. It's much longer. The first official release on an album of the Perfect Cell theme that Faulconer composed was on The Best of Dragon Ball Z Volume 3, which dropped in around 2003. And the full theme on this is only about 43 seconds, which makes the almost 4 minutes of the remix, again, crazy. This guy composed his whole thing. There's even segments in the remix that just aren't part of the original theme at all. Like, he created original parts of the song. It's really good. It was so influential that obviously so many people remember it, but even people like A$AP Rocky turned it into a song.
That we camp out, screaming fuck the world, never catch me with my pants down. Always been a stand-up guy, rather stand out. Grab some and stand swim for dishing with my bands.
And also there's some rumors with Linkin Park that I'll get into soon. Very exciting stuff. So as they do, the Dragon Ball community loves to make AMVs, fan art, all sorts of fan content, and obviously this is one of them. According to pretty much everyone on Reddit, YouTube, Twitter, this Cell remix was just absolutely everywhere, in Flash games, in AMVs, in just every piece of fan content you can imagine. One of the most notable things, though, is games, and that's going to lead us down a pretty big rabbit hole, and I'm going to get into that right now. One that pretty frequently got brought up in my search was one called Dragon Ball Dress Up, which a lot of people were talking about how they have severe nostalgia for this, heard the theme in it while creating their OCs, and I did a search for a couple of similar games around Newgrounds and whatever weird, shady Flash rehosting websites I could, and I found a couple. So I found one that I actually thought was the one people were talking about. It was pretty comprehensive. You could even dress up as Naruto. It didn't have any music playing. And this was honestly kind of a bummer. I looked around, tried to find some more Dragon Ball dress-up games, which a lot of them involved undressing Bulma, which is not really surprising. I found one that was also just dressing up your own Super Saiyan OC. It was not nearly as good as the first one, like, it just kind of sucked, but it did have the perfect Cell theme playing in the background, so I guess this is the one that people were playing. So, another thing that people were talking about was this game called Dragon Ball Z Hyper Dimensions, which I found out pretty quickly was actually a SNES game, but there was a very popular Flash remake of this that was out there called Dragon Ball Z Flash Dimensions. So I played a rehost of that, and it didn't contain the Cell theme, but it did contain, like, a selection of music that included looping Rob Zombie, Nirvana, the Alien Ant Farm, like Smooth Criminal, just the riff over and over. Pretty 2000s kind of stuff. I really like the vibe, actually. But even though these are old, they have the music, or maybe not, and people say that they could be the true origins of it. These are definitely not the true origins of the Perfect Cell remix. The general consensus from the people that I saw who are also trying to figure this out was that it was spread around Dragon Ball forums in the early 2000s, which isn't the most helpful of information, but it at least gives us a time frame that this was made very quickly after the Perfect Cell theme was first introduced. Nobody knows exactly which forums, and also they're probably gone. I looked at a bunch and they were just not archived, which is really sad, but we still have something here. The first full upload of the remix on YouTube is on May 30th of 2008, and it's by this guy named Curly Hair Dude 535. Who I don't think has any idea who originally uploaded it. It's just credited to Bruce Faulconer in the credits, and he just kind of is like, hey guys, thank you for supporting the upload in the comments, so I think he has no clue. There are just so many claims. One Redditor claimed to know the guy who made the remix personally, which really excited me. Another person said, oh, I might know who you're talking about. Did he create this for an AMV? I reached out to him because his account was actually fairly active, and he never responded. I had a good feeling about this guy, too. I was like, this guy might actually know his shit. Like, I should reach out, and just never heard anything. Another Redditor actually looked like he was on the search, but a dystopian 1984 Reddit mod just removed the comment. Thanks. Others say they remember the remix being spread around LimeWire in the very early 2000s, which I tried to see if there's any way I could get like an archived version of that on my computer, and it just would not work, which bummed me out, because I would love to browse that. And then a good chunk of the comments and tweets and Reddit posts about this are just about how badass the remix is, and how awesome it is that this guy just made this and then dipped, never to be seen again. There are some comments that mention Linkin Park as a possible originator for this remix, and that theory really excited me, so that was something very fun to look into. So Mike Shinoda, one of the members of Linkin Park, actually had a side project called Fort Minor, and on YouTube you can find a very popular upload called Spell It Out, Fort Minor. And in this, it's him rapping a verse over the Cell remix. So there's been a lot of confusion over whether or not this is actually real, if Mike Shinoda did this on purpose, or if it's a fan mashup. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and crush your Linkin Park dreams. It is a fan mashup. The original verse comes from a project called, and I'm not even gonna lie to you, I have to look at the script for this, Rock and Roll Could Never Hip Hop Like This Part 2 by Handsome Boy Modeling School. That's the real name of the song the actual verse comes from. It's not the Perfect Cell theme.
Give me a second just to spell it out so nobody can twist what I'm talking about. I don't have to fake anything.
So one commenter on YouTube actually claimed it was composed for a HalfLife mod, which they did not go into which specific mod, but this got me down a new kind of rabbit hole of HalfLife mods themed around Dragon Ball, which was very interesting, actually. So there was like 3 main Dragon Ball Half-Life mods that I found out there. The first one was called DB Source. I tried to download it and I couldn't get it running. It's pretty old, but it did have an original soundtrack. I dug through the files and there's a soundtrack that was made by someone named Garrett Crosby. Unfortunately, none of them are the Perfect Cell theme. There's like a couple by Garrett that sound semi-similar to the style of the Cell remix, but it's not that. It's not him. So the next one is called Earth Special Forces, and I actually got this one to run. I played it a bit. The controls are kind of terrible, but it's kind of fun. It's kind of cool. I, of course, played as Cell. So I dug through the files of this one, too, and I found several music tracks, which, yet again, not the Cell theme at all. Also, this next one, which was called Dragon Mod Z, I could, like, not really find anything on it, but it's not really important because this one and the last one came out around 2007 to 2012, so that's way past when we know the Perfect Cell theme originated. But modding old games actually was the right direction to head in, just not Half-Life. So one commenter on Reddit actually said that the Cell remix was made for a Quake 3 mod called DB Quake that later on had to get renamed to Bid for Power because of legal issues. They said it was named by someone known as ALX. I looked around on YouTube for gameplay of this first, and I didn't really find many with the theme playing, so I had to go find a download and install it myself. So there were a few different versions of it out there. The most common one and like the official download was version 1.2, which seemed pretty early. I went through the files of that. I did not see the Perfect Cell theme at all. Yeah, for this version, most of the files were not dated past 2002, which is, to be fair, around the time we're looking for, but still, it's a very narrow time period, and I know they kept updating this mod, so I kept looking for more versions. So eventually I kind of like was looking around shady websites and I found one that claimed to be version 4.0 and it ran. I actually played it. I was pretty excited to actually get this running, especially a different version of it, because people were so adamant that this was in Bid for Power. Like, a few people said, yeah, this was in that Quake mod, so I was excited. The mod actually was pretty fun. I liked it more than the Half-Life mods. It probably looks terrible because the aspect ratio was just way off, but I tried to get some good Cell gameplay for you guys. In the music folder for Bid for Power 4, track 1 through 4 was pretty much just random Dragon Ball or anime related stuff from the internet. But track number 5, dating all the way back to October 9th of 2002. Track number 5 was the Cell remix. This is the earliest physical sighting of the Cell remix that I have found so far, back to October 9th of 2002. And yes, it will actually play a game if you load into a game and press the 0 key. You can cycle through all the music tracks, and this is one of them. So it was pretty easy to find out who did the music design for this. It's on their website, and it's in the credits of the game, and it's some guy called Remiser. And not only was it the Perfect Cell remix, it was a more distorted, shorter version of the remix than I've ever heard before. So does that mean that Remiser is the creator? All the music in the game is credited to him. There is a credit to a guy named Yingwei, not to be confused with the famous guitarist who made the menu music, which did not play for me at all. I couldn't even find that. I looked into him, but that's pretty hard considering his screen name is also the name of a very famous person. Making your screen name the name of a famous musician kind of makes it hard to look for your ancient Dragon Ball fan content on the internet, so I didn't look much into him. Let's take at some of the other work that Remisser has done. So Remisser was doing industrial/techno tracks and remixes, and also has his name next to the earliest known sighting of the Cell remix that I could find. Now, there are definitely some differences between the Music 5 file version of the Cell remix and the one that's on YouTube. For starters, the Music 5 version is only 3 minutes long. It cuts out a pretty significant chunk of the intro and outro ambience, and also it is way more distorted than the version on YouTube. I think the reason it cuts out so much of that intro and outro is just so it loops better in the game. But the fact that this was the first sighting of it in this game and it's cut down and we already know there's a longer version makes me realize that the actual source is still out there. This isn't the first ever actual sighting, it's just the earliest I can find right now. So this kind of opens up a whole other mystery. Did Remisser make the Cell remix, or did he find it somewhere else, tweak it, and then use it for this? We can see on his Newgrounds page that he's not really into Dragon Ball. I couldn't find any mentions of it, so maybe one of the makers of the mod was just a friend and asked him, hey man, you make cool music. Could you make a Dragon Ball song or remix for my Dragon Ball Quake mod? And he was like, okay, yeah, cool. And he looked into it, found the Bruce Faulconer music, found the Cell theme, and just decided to remix it and make it badass as hell. Or, since it was also notorious back then, maybe he just found it somewhere on some forum that doesn't exist anymore, took it, tweaked it, and took credit, which I hope is not true because that's kind of fucked up. I can honestly see both situations being true, which is incredibly frustrating. I think it's weird that the guy in that comment mentioned someone named ALX, but I never found that name, like not once. I looked hard and I never found that name. I only found Remisser. So that's interesting. I reached out to Remisser on Newgrounds, which sounds stupid, but he did respond to something like a year ago, so maybe there's a chance. I don't know. I just want to figure this out. I know it's like total long shot, but I had to try. Yeah, I haven't heard back, but I do truly believe that Remisser is our absolute best lead. Like, this is the earliest known sighting. He makes music similar. If he didn't make it, he might know where he might remember where he found it, which would be huge. So earlier I mentioned that I didn't really search forums super comprehensively, and that's just because not many of them exist anymore. Like, there's not many that are archived on a Wayback Machine or archive.org or anything like that. I did comb through some forums like Neoseeker and Konsenshu, which is a Dragon Ball like collectors kind of forum. I actually found people who were also searching for the original Cell remix, including someone who mentioned Remisser, which somehow I missed when doing this. So we get dangerously close to the truth. If someone comes and kills me and this other guy, you know, we got too close. I wish I could find before that, but it really seems that nobody knows who this guy is, and nobody knew at any point in time except for maybe right as it got made. I'm gonna conclude this by just asking, what do you guys think? Because I think there's a good case that Remisser could have made it, but I also think that there's a good case that he didn't, and that someone else did. If Remisser didn't make it, then it would have had to been made before October of 2002, which again is really impressive considering when the episode aired. The good thing about knowing that time period, it's so narrow that it is searchable. I just hope the content to actually search is still out there and makes it possible for anyone to try and find this. Yeah, it's kind of a call to action to anyone who may know anything. I really wish these people on Reddit responded, because I want to know what these people close to this know. I wasn't, present at the time, so I don't have that memory of, oh yeah, maybe it was on this forum, maybe it was on that forum. The thing that sucks about the internet is sometimes stuff just is gone. Sometimes big forums where people meet each other, make all this stuff, they just vanish, and you can't find anything from them anymore. It's sad. It really is. That's why I'm glad that things get archived a lot, but man, they did not get archived for this. Like, not at all. I don't know. Put in the comments if you have any information, because I want to solve this. And even though I'm making this video now, I'm going to keep looking. Happy Cell Day, everybody. Thank you for watching, and I wish you luck if you continue to search. Who thinks Cell is black? Black Cell.